and she's just an amazing chef. She's taught me so much, and I'm sure the rest of you, little tips in the kitchen. So I'm excited, and I'm going to turn it over to her. And thanks again for everything that you do for us, Kelley.
Oh, you're welcome. Very welcome. Nice to see everybody. Nice to, or listen. Hi. Hi, Sharon. All right. So Kelley, so I'm the plant-based kitchenista. So we're going to make, broken lasagna. So it's a little bit different, but you can actually just do the exact, I'll kind of walk through if you want to make it as a lasagna. I'll tell you exactly how to make it that way. But this is a broken lasagna, which is a very easy way to make it. And it's just as delicious, but it's a lot easier to do. But like I said, I'll show you how to layer it up and actually make the regular lasagna if you want to do that for family. But if you're just doing it for yourself, broken lasagna, good, really good. And then we're going to make a sun-dried spinach and quinoa salad. So a nice side dish that's going to be really good for that too. So we'll go ahead and get started. So one of the things I'm going to go ahead and get going is, so with COVID, of course, and with snowstorms in Colorado, because we keep having these little like flurries, and then they'll say, oh, it's going to be like 5 or 6 inches. And then everybody runs to the store and then buys the stores out, and you go to the store and there's like nothing on the shelves except everything you don't want, like dog food and I think a couple other things. So when we went to the grocery store today, or actually yesterday and stuff, they didn't have any noodles that didn't have egg in them, so lasagna noodles. So there is something, so I'm going to actually use.
Can you hear it?
I can hear it.
Wasn't here. Now I am.
And we'll go ahead and we'll mute. If you've got questions, please ask as many questions as you like, and you can go ahead and put them in the chat. But if it does get noisy, we'll have to mute a little bit so everybody can hear. But please ask as many questions as you like. I love to answer questions. But like I was saying, so we're going to use the penne. So we're going to do it just a little bit different. So I'm going to show you a third way you can make this, because they didn't have any really good noodles. They only had the oven ready lasagna noodles. These are good, but one thing I've noticed, because you can just put them, you just make like lasagna and you don't have to boil the noodles. Sometimes I notice though, if you don't put a lot of sauce on the top, the noodles will buckle up. And so you'll get a lasagna that will do this. It still tastes just as good, but it doesn't tend to have that really nice, pretty finish on the top. So one of the things I do, if it starts buckling a little bit and I see it like halfway through the cooking process, I'll pull it out and I'll do like sliced tomatoes, and I'll put sliced tomatoes all over the top, or cherry tomatoes. And then that covers up the buckling of the lasagna, which makes it really good. So, but like I said, since these are already, I don't have to boil these. I'm actually not going to use these this time because I normally just use regular lasagna noodles. So I'm going to do it in a penne. But like I said, I'm going to show you how to make a lasagna too. So, but we are going to make a broken lasagna. And this is, like I said, is delicious. Really, really good. Okay, so I'm going to get the noodles going. So when we've got it ready, we actually have the noodles ready. Look at the water boiling. So I'll give it just a couple minutes here. And the noodles that we use, just to let you know too, these are whole wheat. So Jerry, when he goes to stores, these are Rao's homemade. Penne regatta, and they'll actually plump up really nicely. But you could use, anything else that's out there, all the different ones. So if you want the kind of the small mini penne because you want a little bit more of the noodles, or you want I don't know what else is out there. There's like tons and tons of noodles. You could use whatever you got. You could also use like a macaroni noodle if you wanted. So depending on what you've got in your counter or your actually cabinets and stuff, and maybe with COVID, you only can find like a certain couple, then you can use those. So we'll just get the water boiling here, and then we will get this going. All right. So we're going to start making the vegetables. So hopefully you've got the recipe and kind of following along, because I know that Sherry actually sends those out. So let me go ahead and I'm going to start on a medium. So I'm going to do it on induction burner. Got a little bit of vegetable broth. So one of the things we don't cook with, of course, is oil. So we don't use any type of oils like avocado oil. Sometimes you see like corn oil, you see coconut oil. We don't do any of those. We only do like broth, stock. So like vegetable stock, vegetable broth, or white wine. And I always, in my classes and stuff, or water. And so one of the things I always talk about in class when people are like, what's the third one? And they're always like, I don't know. And I'm always like, white wine. Those are what I use for when I make some kind of a tomato sauce or something like that. Then that's when I use the white wine. And then if you do white wine, don't buy, unless you just have some kind of, sitting in the cabinet or something, don't buy the expensive stuff. Just get like the Franzia in a box. And then that way you can keep it on the counter or you can keep it in the fridge. And then you just pour out a little bit as you need it. And it stays good for like 6 months. I think I've had the Franzia, which has been fine. And then sometimes when it gets down to just a little bit, I'll put it in a mason jar and then I'll just put it in the fridge and I'll pull it out when I need it. So don't go buy the expensive stuff unless that's what you have around and that's what you want to use. All right, so there's vegetable broth. And I'm gonna watch when the butter gets boiling. All right, and then if you're following along, we're actually gonna skip to step 4. So we're gonna add the vegetable broth. We've got the roasted red pepper. So I'm gonna grab out the roasted red pepper. So here's what we did with the roasted red pepper. There's 2 ways that you can do it. So this is a whole red pepper. I just threw it in the oven 350 and then just let it basically starts roasting, and then the skins come out really nice. So you'll see, you'll be able to start pulling off the skins. I do this a lot. So like it's like our Kroger's grocery store, sometimes they'll have like maybe some like vegetables and fruits getting maybe like a few days past when it really is supposed to be sold. So they'll put it in these bags and they'll say, oh, for 69 cents, you can have, 6 or 7 bell peppers. And they'll put like green and yellow and that. They're not moldy or anything like that. They're just maybe get a little bit wrinkly. Then what I do is I'll buy those up at the 69 cents. And then I'll take like, whatever I can get, maybe it's 5, 10, 20, and I'll roast them up in the oven, and then I'll chop them up and put them in baggies. And then I have roasted red peppers for all the time that I need them. If you don't want to go through this process, then you can also buy the roasted red peppers in a jar in water. So that's another easy way to do it. But if you like the roasted red peppers and they're good like in hash browns and, and potatoes and all those kind of things, then just grab a whole bunch, especially if you can get them on sale, a whole bunch of the bell peppers, put them in the oven 350 and just kind of watch them. They're about 30, 45 minutes, and you'll start seeing them getting kind of the nice little roasting colors and stuff on the outside. And then when it's cooled off, this one's a little hot, but I'm gonna go ahead and peel it down. I've got tougher fingers from grabbing things out of ovens, but so you just pull the skin off like that. If you want it to set a little bit more, feel free to put it into a bowl and put plastic over it, or just take it and wrap it in plastic. That will actually help the skin come off, just like that. So I just peel it off. And then you just pull out the core. And then the seeds, I usually just take a spoon, just a little spoon, and I'll just kind of pull those out a little bit. You don't need the seeds. If I do jalapenos, because that's another thing that I'll do, that I'll roast up a bunch of them like that and put them in the freezer, then I leave the seeds in because I want a little bit more of the heat. If you don't want the heat, take the seeds out. All right, so just kind of grab it a little bit, pull the skin, comes off in chunks. And it smells wonderful. Around a little bit, flip it over. You can use a spoon without using your fingers. You can grab a knife. There's all kinds of different ways to peel it. And you can tell the skin comes off just so easy. But if you put some plastic wrap on it and you're, like maybe you do it the night before and put it in the fridge, it's an even easier way and stuff to be able to cool it down. So let me wash my hands real quick. All right, so then if I grab the roasted red bell pepper, then I'm going to take this off here, put it on my cutting board, a little bit more skin, just pull it off like that, and it's roasted red bell pepper, all ready to go. And then just do a nice chop. So I'm going to do kind of like a large dice just because I want a little bit more chunks. If you want it like all little small, because what I'm trying to do is like with a little bit larger dice is matching it up to the zucchini. So that way you've got kind of that same mouthfeel. So I'm going to add those in, a little bit more vegetable broth because I talked too much. Jerry's smiling. All right, it's roasted red peppers. Just like that. And when you start, like they start cooking and they're just warming up, oh my gosh, they smell so wonderful. All right, and then we've got zucchini, which is here. So all I did is I left the skin on the zucchini. I just sliced it long ways in half and then did them in quarters like that. If you wanted to do them smaller, you could, or if you wanted to leave them round, you could. But usually with like a penne pasta or even just like your broken lasagna, when you do like the half moons like that, it's just a really good mixture and it mixes up really well. So there's the zucchini. And the cool thing about this recipe too is zucchini is definitely coming in season. So you can find all kinds of them all over the place. All right, grab a spoon. Mix it up a little bit. And this is one of those recipes too. I'm giving you the zucchini and I'm giving you all the different things like that that you can put in it. But think about when the summer's coming up and you've got, you've got yellow squash and you've got, all your different bell peppers. So you could do like the red, the green, and the yellow, or you could do those little sweet mini peppers and roast those up same way you would do the roasted bell peppers that I just showed you, or other types of vegetables that are out there. Just think about whatever you want and what's your favorite and add it into this. This will be, I guarantee you, this will be one of your go-to dishes because it's fast, it's easy, but it's so good. A lot of times and stuff when I'll end up doing like some cooking and stuff for Jerry's daughter. And so I'll just, just because sometimes I'll have extra that I'm making on Sundays when I'm meal prepping, or I'm like, hey, I'm just going to be nice. So I'll make things up like this, like the broken lasagna, and take it over to her. And it's one of her favorites. Okay, so we got those mixed up in there. So a little bit of lemon zest. So just grab your handy dandy lemon, a little bit of a microplane. And the reason why you're putting the lemon in there for freshness. It just gives that really nice freshness and a little bit of acid. Like you'll see if you watch the cooking shows like I do, because I'm probably a cooking show fiend. I'll actually watch it, and one of the things that you'll always see at the very end, or even during the process, they'll put lemon. So some kind of a lemon or a lime in there because they're looking for the freshness with that and a little bit of that acid. And you'll usually see if somebody gets chopped, it's because it's either lack of salt or lack of acid, one of those two things. So that's in there. And then we got the garlic. So 2 cloves of garlic. If you want, one of the tips I always give too is that you can put in just right like that, or I do the same thing. So on Sundays when garlic, because it's like 2 for $1, I'll put the entire bowl of garlic in the oven, 350, for probably about 45 minutes, and it just roasts up, and then I peel all the skin off, and then I put them in little clumps and freeze them. So if I'm looking to use like roasted garlic for lasagna dishes, like I could have done that today, I have these little clumps, which is about 4 or 5 cloves of garlic that I can just chop up and put in there. And the difference between like raw garlic and cooking it up and then roasted garlic, huge difference. Makes a really good flavor profile. So what get your oven going like on a Sunday, and then what I recommend is do some bell peppers, freeze them into like little those little snack baggies, because then you have enough of that. And then also at the same time is do the garlic, and then you have all these fresh frozen ingredients that you can add to your dishes like this. Let me give that a quick stir. All right, let me add any in there. A lot of times, yes, you can salt the water. I know a lot of individual stuff will salt water. I don't, because Jerry is not a salt fan at all. And I've been watching, I always talk about, I actually gave up salt as much as I can, and sugar probably about 6 weeks ago. Sugar, no problem. Salt, still crave it. I think I had too many years of having salt. And so I think it's just one of those things that certain vegetables and certain like potatoes and stuff taste so much better with salt for me. Jerry doesn't think so, but I do.
It's okay.
But I'm getting there. But I know everybody either has like salt or sugar or both, that they, that they like one or the other, and it's hard to give up. So mine is salt. All right, so I didn't put any sea salt. You can add sea salt, black pepper at this stage if you'd like. And so you're just going to saute until your zucchini starts getting softened. You want to make sure it doesn't go to mush, because you want in this ingredients and stuff, you want the whole chew with that, which is really nice. So let me show you real quick just kind of what it's looking like. At this stage, if you wanted to too, you could just actually just do a fork and eat that. Okay, forget everything else. So that's a really nice, easy way to do a bunch of vegetables. But at this stage too, you could actually add, when I was doing the red bell peppers, you could add onions. You could add all kinds of other things. There's all these other vegetables and stuff that are coming out there for the summer. Let's give those a couple quick stirs. All right. So the way that's going, we'll put that on medium low. I'll check my penne. Doing good. I'm going to make the ricotta. This is the easiest, one of the easiest ricottas. And one of the things that I do is I sometimes will make up enough. If I make enough of this up and I don't use it all, I'll actually freeze it. So it's another thing, even though it's tofu and stuff, it freezes really well because you can freeze tofu. So then if you say, okay, I'm only going to need half of it for this one, but then I want to have some later on and I just want to have it made, not have to worry about going to the store and buying tofu or that, freeze it. Just put it in the freezer. First, mark your baggie or mark whatever you put it on and put it in the freezer. And then when you're ready, just set it on the counter for a little while. And then you can actually use it for the next dish. So you can make some more lasagna. You could add it to all kinds of different things that we do. So that's what I always recommend is when you have extra, freeze it. And I understand too, is not everybody has big freezers or double freezers. I've got one out there in the garage, but if you've got a little bit of space, even if it's these little tiny baggies, the little snack baggies, it's always good to have those kind of things around. It makes such a difference and it makes your life so much easier too. This would be another place where you could add basil. So if you have like some frozen basil or something like that, you could definitely add some basil into it too. So I think I'll actually do that really quick. So I'll show you. So if you have leftover basil, it's in the baggie like that. Just do a nice little crunch in your baggie. Grab some out, sprinkle it in, and you'll have some big leaves, you'll have some little leaves, but that is okay. And then the rest, zip up your baggie, throw it back in the freezer. Stir that in. That's looking really good. And a wait, of course, just to test, to see if your zucchini is okay. Just grab one. Needs a couple more minutes. But good, really good. All right. Okay, so for the tofu ricotta, so you've got silken tofu. So silken tofu, usually when you open it up, and it's really creamy. So it's like a very smooth, and you want to look for it where it says silken tofu. It doesn't usually have a lot of water unless you let it sit. So now you'll notice that there's quite a bit of moisture coming off of it. So I'm just going to drain it because you don't need it. Especially if you're using things like mushrooms. So like in the mushrooms, you could go in here too. If you're using anything that has more water in the vegetable, mushrooms, zucchini, those type of things, you definitely do not need the extra moisture in your ricotta. So I've got a food processor. I'm going to dump that in. Then I've got firm. So what I did last night, I took the firm out of the actual packet, and then I just put a paper towel. So you'll notice that the paper towel is very moist. And what that paper towel does, instead of like pressing it, it soaks up a lot of the moisture that you don't need. So then you just kind of grab it with your hands, crumble it up. And the firm tofu, you want to crumble up a little bit. Like I didn't do that for the silken. And the reason why, it takes a lot less time to blend. And then that way you don't have chunks when you're done. Wash my hands. All right, and then we've got nutritional yeast. So nutritional yeast is, it's a yeast and stuff that's not a brewer's yeast, but it's a yeast that actually a lot of people that use it are plant-based or vegan. They'll use it to make like a cheese flavoring. So if you smell it, when you get it, and you can get it like Bragg's, if you can find it in your stores, Bragg's, or you can get it at like any kind of natural market. It's just, basically all it is, it looks a little bit like fish flakes, but it's great when you use it like this. It's really good on like popcorn. So if you pop some popcorn, you want a little cheese flavor, really good with like pepper and maybe a little bit of salt. And then it's also good on like anything else that you're trying to make a cheese flavor. So one of the things that I always look at when individuals are making like ricottas or things with the nutritional yeast, try it out. If they say like a quarter cup, I usually will almost double, triple it because I want to make sure that it tastes like almost like a cheesy type of flavor, especially if you're taking it over for friends and family. So you just want to make sure it adds more of that cheesy flavor. Yes, so your question, so from Jerry, 1 package firm and then one package silken tofu. Yes. That way it gets it that nice and creamy texture stuff that you're looking for. So nutritional yeast, dump that in, All right, and then we've got lemon juice. So actually I'm just going to half the lemon that I have already. And if you wanted even a little bit more fresh flavor, of course, what you could do is you could actually add a little more zest if you wanted to. But this has got a little bit of the seeds. So one of the things, if you don't have the lemon squeezers or that, just grab it over your hand like that. Squeeze it. It'll drain between your fingers. And then if you do get these seeds, like that, you don't have to worry about it. And then it's also good, like if you're making something and you've got garlic and stuff on your fingers, squeezing the lemon like that takes it all away. And your hands smell lemony fresh. All right, those are good. Plenty of time for that. All right, and then we've got a half of a small onion. So just a diced up onion. Throw that in there, whoops. A bit more. All right, and then you've got the garlic. So more garlic. This is another place where you could add the roasted garlic if you wanted to give it a completely different flavor profile. And then we got a little bit of non-dairy milk. So we've got 2 tablespoons of non-dairy milk. So it could be hemp milk, oat milk. We're using soy milk because that's one of the things that we're used to, almond milk, whatever you want to do, or whatever you have in the fridge. All right, get these out of the way. And that is it. So then if you wanted to, within this, you could add more fresh basil. You could add in some dried basil. You could add some oregano, any of the type of flavors that you're looking for. Since I already have the basil in here, I'm gonna actually leave this plain. So mix it up. Scrape down the edges if you need to, because a lot of times your nutritional yeast will actually stick to the top or a little bit of the tofu. Do that. A little bit more. Okay. All right, so one of the tips and tricks that I always love to say, food processors. Has your blade in here, and also if you start to tip it and then actually start to pour this into something, first thing what happens is usually the blade will plop out and then it splatters you. So on the bottom of your food processor, there's this little hole right here, which is where your blade's at. So just actually put your finger in there and kind of grasp the side of the blade like that. And then when you tip it, blade doesn't come out. And it'll hold on and stuff until you actually need it to come out and you can actually pull it out. So there it is. There is the tofu ricotta, all made up and all blended up. So it's all ready to go. But like I said, if you wanted to add basil, you want to add parsley, you want to add other flavors in this, feel free. We've actually made it too where we made it spicy. So we put in like some red pepper flakes for one time we did something. So I'm going to set that aside. That's all ready to go. And like I said, that is more than enough, this recipe. So if you want to cut it in half, do like half silken, half a box of silken, half a box of firm. But at the same time as when you make it, you can freeze it. So that's not a bad thing to do. Okay, so this is all ready. So you'll notice that and I'll show this here, when it's sitting a little bit and waiting, you get quite a bit of the moisture and stuff coming from the zucchinis. So you're going to make sure that you want to strain that out because you don't want to mix it in with your ricotta and everything else because you're going to start getting where it gets a little runny. So make sure you grab like a strainer and get your vegetables out of there. Can you use a blender? Yes, you sure can. So if you don't have a food processor, you can use a blender to create your tofu ricotta. Yeah. And then the other thing that you could do is if you don't have either one of those things, then what I would recommend is stay away from your firm tofu because it's hard to mix up. But grab your silken tofu, add all the ingredients in there, but don't add the milk because you've got enough moisture with that. And then use a really good whisk and some, I guess elbow strength and stuff, and then you can actually whip it up. So, or if you have one of these, the hand blenders with the that we used to do, like my mom used to do with all the mashed potatoes, this works too. So you could do that. So many different ways, but you definitely could make it by hand. I would just keep the firm tofu out and use the silken, and then drop the moisture with the milk, and that'll work. Okay, so let me check the penne. That's still going. Put that on low. All right. So we have the lemon over here. We're all good with that. So I'm going to start on the salad because then we'll toss all the broken lasagna together. And then I'm also going to show you how to do it. Well, actually, I'll show you that now. Oops, you know what I forgot? Nobody caught me. I'm going to add the tomatoes. So tomatoes at the very last because you don't want them broke down too much. So I actually turn the heat up a little bit and add those tomatoes. I always say, keep me honest. You'll notice in something and be like, I forgot something. So just add those in, but look at this. Isn't that beautiful? Without even doing anything with it. That's so beautiful. Sorry, barking dog. So I'll just let that cook just a little bit. And you know what? One of the things I look at too is I try to make stuff easy. If you're trying to get things done in a hurry, just add everything into here and then just kind of cook it all up and then it's all ready to go. All right, so let's look at the ingredients for the salad. All nicely all chopped up. All right, so let's do the dressing. So you've got 2 tablespoons of vegetable broth. So I'm going to kind of eyeball it a little bit. You don't have vegetable broth or stock, water, that'll work. You could also change it up a little bit. If you happen to have some of the Franzia white wine, you could add a little bit of white wine to it too. Another way to make a little bit different flavor. Then I've got lemon juice. So 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. If you're not real big on like the acid flavor or lemon stuff, cut it in half. And that'll give you a really nice flavor. One of the things I always share is when you're making things, especially like spices and lemon juice and things like that I say to add, even with my recipes, try it out because your palate may be a little bit different than mine. So one of the things you do is like if it says 2 tablespoons, go with like 1 teaspoon of lemon juice first and then taste it and then add a little bit more and add a little bit more. You can always add, can't take out. And one of the things I always see, especially online, is that people complain that they've taken the recipes that they've tried off of Pinterest or other sites and end up throwing most of it away because they said it's like overspiced or just doesn't taste good. So try spices lightly and even like lemon juices and things, and then come back and add more if you want, and then mark your recipe. All right, get that going a little bit because the tomatoes are going to break down just a little bit. Check the penne. Getting close. All right, so we've got the lemon juice in here. Then we've got 2 cloves of garlic. Same thing, you could actually chop up if you wanted to the roasted garlic. Grab a spoon. Grab that out. Okay, and then we've got Dijon mustard. You could change this up too by using like your stone ground mustard. There's also all kinds of mustard out there without salt. You could do the Dijon, you could do the yellow. You could actually mix Dijon and yellow and stone ground. If you've never tried that before in a dressing, try it. So if it says like a teaspoon of Dijon mustard, divide it in 3s, do a little bit of stone ground mustard, do a little bit of yellow mustard, and do the Dijon. It is so good in dressings. Gives you that nice mustard flavor, but just gives you a really kind of different look and feel, which is nice. Okay, and then we've got a little bit of pinch of roasted red pepper flakes. You don't have to do roasted red pepper flakes. It just gives a nice little flavor. So that's, I say, it's completely optional. And then you've got, of course, your salt and pepper. So once that's there, grab your whisk, grab a fork, grab a spoon, whatever you have. Mix it up. Taste. That's good. I would not add any more, just other than a little pinch of the roasted red pepper, but it's definitely a mustard type of, kind of like a mustard citrus type of dressing. But once you mix in the quinoa and everything else that you're going to mix in, it's going to be really good. So that's ready to go. So I'm just going to set that to the side, and then I'll just whisk it again right before we add it. Okay, that's nice and broke down. So I'll put that on low. So you can see my tomatoes. Some of them are broken down, some of them are still a little bit whole, and that's what you're kind of looking for versus all broken down tomatoes. So that just gives it the kind of the zhuzh, I guess, for the dish. Learned that word the other day. One of my one of my trainer friends and stuff at work, and she's like, I need to zhuzh stuff up. So I zhuzhed it there. All right, let me check the pin A. Case one. Got one more minute. Okay. So then when I'm making the salad, one of the things that it asks for the actual salad part is almonds. So I'm going to throw the almonds on here just to roast them up. And hopefully, I think my last class and stuff, I burned the walnuts. So it does happen to everybody. So keep me like, watch me real quick, because I'll get talking and then I'll forget and I'll have to start over again, which I don't want to have to do. All right, put this out of the way. I could just put a fork in those vegetables and just eat those. That is yum. Throw some cabbage, like some green cabbage in there too. Yum. Okay, so we have, so to mix in the ingredients. Nice bowl. I have quinoa. So quinoa, let me give you some secrets on quinoa. So quinoa is really, really easy to make. So what you want to do is you put in the amount of quinoa, and then you also put in the amount of water that says on the box. And then a lot of times and stuff, what it'll tell you, and a lot of sites will tell you, is keep boiling it, boil it until all the water's out of it. And then you should have nice quinoa. No, easier way to do it. Let it boil for about 2 or 3 minutes. So you get a nice big boil on it. Turn off your burner, put your lid on, and then let it sit. So then when you do that, you get this nice, and then you take a fork and fluff it, you get this nice quinoa that's not mush. And the quinoa soaks up all the moisture. So this is, I used red quinoa because I wanted to be able to show this for the, let me just take a fork for, fluff it a little bit, but I wanted to be able to show it in the salad. So, you know, you can use tricolor, which I think is absolutely beautiful. You can use white, you can use the red. I had red, so look at all that nice fluffy quinoa. And I actually made more because Jerry's like, I want some more quinoa for other dishes. So there's more than a cup of quinoa in here, but we're gonna measure out a little bit of a cup. But that's the way to do quinoa. Don't let this sit there and just watch it boil and boil and boil. 2 or 3 minutes, heavy boil, shut off the burner, whether it's gas or electric, doesn't matter, put the lid on it and let it sit. And then about 15, 20 minutes later, just check it and stuff, and I guarantee you, that's what your quinoa will look like. And it's yummy. All right, so we're gonna put about a cup, and a little bit over a cup. All right, I bet the pinna's done. Grab it out, let me check my, all right, pull this over real quick. Drain it. Dump out the hot water. And then I'm gonna put it back in the same dish. And I'm gonna grab a lid because I'm gonna hold on to it for a couple minutes. If your pasta, like when you're making things and you're sitting there and you're doing something else, your pasta starts sticking like spaghetti, just add a little bit of vegetable broth. And then just take a fork and mix it up, and it'll actually unstick everything. So a lot of times and stuff you used to see where everybody would put oil all over it and then keep it from sticking. Vegetable broth works the same way. So do that in a lot of classes because I'll have to get things ready, and then I'll just put a little bit of vegetable broth on it, and it doesn't matter hot or cold, and then I'll mix it up. But so I put it in the bowl, but there's the quinoa. And it is so fluffy and nice, and it doesn't become mushy, which sometimes quinoa does if you keep boiling it. Another question I know a lot of people will ask is, do you rinse your quinoa? I don't. You can do that, and it actually says on the recipe, but when I'm in a hurry and stuff, I don't. I just start it right up, put it in the water and start boiling it up, and then turn it off and let it sit there. And that's when I get this absolutely beautiful quinoa. So chef tip. All right, so we got the quinoa, so we're following along. So let me check the, perfect. Yay, didn't burn them. I'll do the, what is it, the David dance on QVC?
Happy dance.
Happy dance, happy dance. So when you toast like almonds, walnuts, anything else in your house, it smells almost like cookies. There's a lot of times and stuff in my cooking classes, I'll toast a little bit of a nuts or something, and it brings people in droves. If I'm in like a store or something like that cooking, it goes through their ventilation system. So garlic and onions is a really good one, or nuts. So those are all nice and toasty and ready to go because you don't want to over toast them. So I'll set those aside and let them cool a little bit. All right. Then we got sun-dried tomatoes. So regular, just sun-dried tomatoes, make sure they're not in any oil. And then I just put them in water and I let them soak overnight because in that way they're not hard and chewy, almost like cranberries and stuff. They're really nice and soft and they blend in. When you've got the water and you're making something else, you could actually keep, so if you wanted to add something like this or some flavoring, use the water that comes from your sun-dried tomatoes. It's really good. But I don't have anything to use it with right now, so I'm actually going to drain it, which is sad. I do the same thing with date water. So if I've got a bunch of dates made up and extra water, I'll use the date water to sweeten things. Like you can do that with your oatmeal, and if you wanted like savory oatmeal, you could actually, you could actually use sun-dried tomatoes and then use the juice. So dump them on your cutting board, rough chop. You can leave them whole if you wanted to, because they're not really big. I mean, most of them are probably about an inch long. You know, some maybe about an inch and a half. But just to give it a nice, more of a mixed salad, it's always good to just chop them up. These are smoked sun-dried tomatoes. So just added it because that's what I had in the pantry without going to the store. So we're going to have a little bit of a smoky salad. Okay. All right. So in the recipe, you can either add the dressing into the quinoa and then add everything else. Or if you've got everything and your quinoa is not really hot because it's been sitting around, you can add everything together and then add the dressing. So that's what I'm going to do, make it easy. So sun-dried tomatoes. If you don't like sun-dried tomatoes, don't add them. Just make sure they don't have oil. And I'm going to grab this for my vegetables. And then I'm going to grab a spoon. Just mix up the salad. So just give it a nice mix. That. And then we've got chopped spinach. You could do arugula. So arugula, especially now, is really coming out. So you can just do spinach. This is baby spinach, but the baby, it's kind of funny. They say baby spinach, but sometimes the leaves are like that big. So I just gave it a rough chop. That way it kind of matches everything else. A little bit easier to eat. So mix that in. The red quinoa, or even a tricolor, I love tricolor, is a pretty way and stuff to make a salad. Okay, so dressing, give it a nice little whisk again. So I'm going to add, so this is probably maybe what, quarter cup, maybe half, probably about a half a cup of dressing. I'm not going to add all the dressing, and I'll show you why. I'm going to add, I just drizzle it on. That was about half. And then since I'm home, but normally and stuff, and I'll actually, let me just grab a glove. Normally if I'm home, Jerry doesn't care. He eats. He'll actually, but I'll just take my hand and stuff and mix it up. But since in the class, so grab a glove or just do it with your hands, and then just start getting in there and mixing in your, so you've got your spinach in there, you've got your quinoa, you've got your sun-dried tomatoes. Get in there and just kind of like give a little squeeze. And then if you added something like arugula or kale, this is a really good way to break down kale. And two things that do really well, actually 3 things do really well with kale to break it down: citrus, berries, or avocado. And then you can add those and stuff to your kale, or you can just add a little bit of water or just use your hand and really start breaking it down. But when you do this, it actually gets in there and it mixes in your spinach and everything else, and it breaks it down just enough to where it's a really good mouthfeel with it. So, and if you get, if it gets like your quinoa kind of chunks up a little bit, just get in there and separate it a little bit like that. All right. And then, see, the good thing with a glove, peel it off, and you're all done. So then if you taste it, what you want to taste in a salad like this is you want to taste the leaves. So the lettuce leaves. So you'll actually taste these and you'll get to see if they have enough dressing. If you don't, add a little bit more. And I'd say just a little bit more. And then you have leftover dressing that you can actually use for something else. So you could actually put it on the salad the next day, or if you wanted to put it on like a kind of like vegetables, all those kind of things, you could add that too. This would be another salad that you could add. Like if you had like your cherry tomatoes and you had extra left over, you could add some of your cherry tomatoes chopped in here. You could add some of your zucchini, so you can kind of match everything up, which would be really good. All right, we move this. I'm going to grab a bowl. Not hot anymore. You can mix the sliced almonds in, or leave them off to the side. I'm actually going to do a little bit of them, but then I'm going to use some for decoration. That way it gives a little bit more color. All right, let's get there. Grab my palms. If it wasn't a cooking class, this would go on the table. But cooking class, I want to show you the pretty. But for us, ready to go. So don't think I'm fancy when not in front of a camera. We're not at all. Get all those almonds out of there. It's like if you took the trouble to toast them, you want to make sure you get those out. All right, and then of course, let's sprinkle on a few more. And for another just kind of pretty, green onions, chives, those type of things always add a nice look and feel to things. All right. Sun-dried tomato, spinach, and quinoa salad. Doesn't that look delicious? Yum. Okay, so that's ready to go. Let's see, sliced almonds, yes. So I will actually, you could actually, if you've got whole almonds, you can slice them up yourself, or you can just buy the sliced almonds, or substitute in walnuts, or pecans, whatever you have. So whatever you have in the refrigerator, that actually works. Or freezer. Of course, it seems like I freeze everything. I was just thinking about that, I was saying that, but actually all my nuts I keep in the freezer. That way they just last a lot longer and they don't go rancid. So I always have nuts that are in the freezer. All right, clean up just a little bit, get some things out of the way. Pasta. Sliced almonds, yum. You get, if you had extra, next day, oatmeal. Be a great way to do it. All right, good. Quinoa everywhere. All right, so we've got this in here. So what we're gonna do, so there's a couple ways. So the way I said it here on the recipe, what you're gonna do is in a large pasta bowl, you're gonna toss the noodles with the vegetable mixture, and then you're gonna add in the tofu and then the chives. We couldn't find chives because of snowstorms here and everybody bought out chives, which I'm not sure why, or we just didn't get shipments in. So we're just going to use the green onions, the scallions. So when you're looking at recipes, there's easy ways and stuff to substitute. So like if you didn't have lasagna noodles, you could do the penne, or you could use some other type of noodle. You didn't have the chives, use the green onions, or if you didn't want any of that, don't worry about it. So trying to show you different ways that you can do things, especially when if a snowstorm hits and your grocery stores get entirely cleaned out. So if you were making this into lasagna, first thing you're going to want to do is you would actually put, so what I would probably add to this, I'd probably add maybe like a little bit of tomato sauce on the bottom, for maybe just a little bit on your pan. And then I'd put your noodles. I'd put a layer of the ricotta, nice thin layer, add your vegetables, add, if you wanted to add a little bit of tomato sauce, but you could just add a little bit to the bottom. Then the next layer, you could put the noodles, ricotta, vegetables, and then just keep layering them up. And then on top, if you wanted to, especially if you're going to use these oven-ready lasagna noodles, then I would put the tomato sauce on top, some of the vegetables, and then you could also slice up some really nice round tomatoes on there, and then put it in the oven to bake. So that's all you have to do. It's just the same ingredients. You're just going to layer it like this. But like I said, I'm doing a broken lasagna, so if I would have had normal lasagna noodles, I would have had to just break them all up so they're all little pieces, and then I'd put those in here, and then I'd mix everything up. So it's just, it gives you the same flavor and everything, but it's just broken lasagna noodles. And a lot easier to make to get people the same taste of the lasagna without having to do all the layers and all the fancy things, and baking it and everything else. Okay, so Annie, out of the way. So just grab, it looks like they're sticking together a little bit. Just grab a fork. So they're so hot, they're really not, they're just a little bit of sticking. But like I said, if you wanted to, you could just grab some of the, these are coming unstuck, you just grab a little bit of the vegetable broth and add it in, and then it completely unsticks them. So a couple of them like that, just put them down, make sure they're all looking good. And the nice thing about it, Jerry picked these out, so, you know, nice big noodles. So they're, you know, they started out pretty small, and then they're a really nice size. So you can eat, like, you don't get like a whole bunch of noodles because you're going to get the vegetables and things that mix in with them. All right, so we've got this in there. So we're going to do the vegetables. So like I said, since they've been sitting here a little bit, you're getting a lot of moisture from your tomatoes and your zucchini. So you're just going to want to make sure you don't add as much of that moisture as you can. Just kind of drain it out a little bit. A little bit. Like I said, I would just eat the pan full of the vegetables. Looks so good. And you could do a big pan like this, and then the next day, cold salad. Put them on a salad, and then you've got the dressing too that you could use. Drain a little bit. Make sure you get all the goodness in there, all your basil. So before I even mix it in, look at that. That's beautiful. It smells wonderful. Okay, so then you've got your ricotta. So as I said, it's basically a half a cup. So play with it a little bit. Ricotta is really good. You can add, you know, as little or as much as you want. I always just kind of eyeball it to see what I like. But as the ricotta, as you see, it has a really nice texture to it. So it's thick, almost like you would see with just regular ricotta and stuff that you would make for the normal lasagnas that always had the sausage and the meat and everything else in them. So, all right, so I'm going to grab out a 1/4 cup. Add that in. What I do too, a lot of times, I'll meal prep out. So I'll make a lasagna or make something like this, and then I put it in these nice little containers. I'll show you one of the containers that we use. Like these, got them on Amazon. And so like this one is it's called Jerry's Hearty Stew. If anybody wants a recipe, it's really good. And I just make these. And so if I do lasagna, I'll make a pan that's probably about this big. And then we'll eat like the 2 big slices and stuff for dinner. And then I'll actually meal prep out the rest. So I'll put in the other extra 4 slices that are left over, put them in this dishes. And since they're glass, you can actually just take the tops off, pop them in the microwave. And guess what? You have lasagna for 2 or 3 days. Really good. So think about meal prepping if you've got extra. Just throw them into those type of dishes. All right, let me grab. So then just kind of start nicely, just kind of like, you know, bringing the stuff from the bottom to the top, mixing it together. And then you'll be able to kind of play it with a little bit and eyeball it to see if it's enough ricotta or if you want a little bit more. but then that way you're not breaking down your vegetables too. So I get stuff everywhere. Like I said, I burn nuts. So even though the background stuff, I can set towels on fire. I can do all kinds of things. Happens to all of us. So I would say I'm going to add a little bit more, but I have a lot of penne in here, more so than you would normally have for the broken lasagna noodles. This is one of those dishes when we'll take it over to Jerry's daughter and share, that when it comes over in the baking dish that I usually give it to her in, that she'll actually pull back the plastic and the wrap or the top and grab a fork and then just start eating it. Because usually I'll bring it over where it's still warm. All right, that looks good. So then of course, taste test. This is where you could add more basil. You could add like, you know, some other different flavors if you wanted to do that. You could add, you know, your black peppers, anything like that. That's where you could add it. Okay, so before I actually put it in the dish to show you, there it's made up. Yum. Hearty, good, lots of good carbs. So let me grab the dish. I'm kind of grabbing some of the vegetables in here too, because I want to be able to, I always have to take a picture at the end. That way, when I finally get the cookbook going together and stuff, I have all the pictures of everything. A couple more red. One over there. Okay. So then, for nice look and feel, there I put my cutting board over here. Chives or green onions, or, oops, I dropped one, or nothing at all. It's up to you. I always like just a little bit of the greenery. And it's not saying I'm doing this for you. It's not saying that I do that we have these really pretty dishes like this or those type of things at home. It would probably been that maybe on a plate. Got to make it easy for your life. Okay, a little bit more. And one thing when you're like, when I'm taking pictures, and that's a lot of the reasons why I'll add the greenery, is it just pops when you're taking photos. All right, so we're right at time. Woo-hoo. Okay, let me grab this out of the way. Put that on the Dutch burner because it's not hot. Okay, so broken lasagna. Doesn't that look delicious? All those fresh vegetables. Like I said, add as many vegetables as you want, or just do it really plain if you wanted to do it. Add as more ricotta if you want. And then sun-dried tomato, spinach, and quinoa salad. So there is dinner. And then you could also too, if you wanted to, with the extra spinach, because you're not using all of your box of spinach, you could add the spinach here into this dish too. That would be another way to add your greens. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you think this looks delicious. If you have any questions and you decide you want to do lasagna, it's Kelley at Plant-Based Kitchen. Just email me and I'm happy to walk you through the steps. But making it just like this for Easter, beautiful. Guarantee everybody will eat it. All right, guys, let me put this down real quick. Love you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a great Easter.
Kelley,
yes.
I have several people that asked me if there's a way they could see this. Do you videotape it and set it up on YouTube?
Yes, we do. We have a videotape, so we can actually, I can tomorrow and stuff send you the link.
Okay, great. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. But yeah, any questions you guys have, if you're trying to figure out how to make this, just feel free to email me. I'm happy to answer any questions at all.
All right. Have a happy Easter, you and Jerry.
You too.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.